I'd like to say a few things about the rhythm of flowing in the 5 Rhythms and attunement. So in this culture, in American culture, there is a very strong emphasis on individualism, on the individual, right? It's really written into the cultural story of what America is in a lot of ways. We have like the Marlboro Man, we have pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and all of these ideas that we should be able to stand on our own 2 feet and be, independent and isolated and alone, and that we shouldn't need anyone, we shouldn't need any help, we shouldn't, there's so many layers to it, and there's a lot of pressure to sort of achieve individually, right? The other end of that spectrum is the collective field, right? And I've been thinking about this too, in thinking about the way that President Biden decided to abdicate. He decided to give up power, to step aside, and instead of prioritizing his personal ambitions, decided to prioritize the collective field, right? And what does that mean culturally, right? Is there a way to balance the individual and the collective instead of just having the individual have all the play? In my sister's town in southern Connecticut, the people in town actually voted against having a sidewalk. They do not want a sidewalk, right? So really just thinking about like what this means. What does it mean to come into the collective? So the rhythm of flowing is the most collective of the 5 Rhythms, right? And in flowing, we come in, we settle down, we sink down, we soften down, we connect with our instinctive self, right? With being this body, with our senses, with hearing, with smell, with taste, with touch, with our bones, our muscles, our skin, our blood, right? We soften down, and as we connect with this body, this moment, this now, instead of building all these stories and being in the past and the future and trying to constantly like reinforce all of our stories of self and our sort of like this self-existing, separate, isolated, eternal self, instead of spending so much energy on that, all of that activity, when we come into this body, this moment, this now, when we ground ourselves in flowing, we can actually attune to ourselves, to the bodies around us. And for me, for a long time, I would sort of rush through the rhythm of flowing. I really just wanted to move on and get into staccato, which was, to me, just so much more interesting. I was kind of, flowing felt like due diligence, like you come here, you establish your ground, and then you get to it. But over the years, my relationship with the rhythm of flowing has changed, has deepened. And instead of it just being like my due diligence, I've come to really love like being in this body and settling into this collective field. Right? There's my own life as a young artist and as a young New Yorker. There was so much like pressure to achieve, and I was so interested in like being my best and like really, putting things out into the world. There was so much of that, and finding like a way to soften and come into this, settle into this intricately interwoven fabric of existence, this collective field, I didn't realize how much I needed it, right? There was so much in that sort of really push to be such an individual. It's very isolated, right? I can settle into this collective field, and it doesn't mean that I give up on my goals and my creations and my vision, but what it can mean, what it feels like for me, is that when I'm attuned to myself and to the bodies around me, when my ground is established and flowing, and when I'm united to others by the ground, I'm not just serving my ego, right? But instead I'm in service to creative life force. And to me that is just, that is a place I love to be.